In 1371, Robert Stewart became King of Scotland. Exactly 600 years later, in 1971, another Scot, Jackie Stewart, became the King of automobile racing for the second time. The House of Stewart lasted as kings for 3.5 centuries. Jackie Stewart was king in 1969, was dethroned in 1970 by the late Jochen Rindt, and regained his crown in 1971. When the original Stewarts started out in the business of being kings, men who wanted to be champions would put on 100 pounds or so of iron, get on a horse, and go out and challenge other contenders. Things have changed for the modern knights of Formula One Grand Prix racing. The armor only weighs a few pounds nowadays, and instead of one horse, men like Jackie Stewart have 400 or 500 at their command. But the men themselves haven't changed. To be a champion still requires nerve, skill, split-second timing, meticulous attention to equipment, and above all, that mysterious will to win that drives some men to challenge the limits of human experience. Jackie Stewart has all these qualities, as we'll see as we follow him through the 1971 World Championship season. When the season opened with the South African Grand Prix, the Ferraris were the team to beat. Stewart's Tyrrell Ford had trouble going the distance the year before, but it was a young car, and it had matured a lot since it was born in August 1970. These cars are like living things, constantly growing and developing. Here's what Stewart has to say about one aspect of this growth.
In the modern motor racing car, I think aerodynamics have played a larger part, as far as the general public's concerned, than anything else at this time. Tyres, of course, have played a very big part too, and aerodynamics in a way have worked along with tyres, because in my Tyrrell Ford now we have body fairing coming over the front end of the car to cover over the frontal area that tyres have in blocking a certain amount of air. So aerodynamics, I think, have become more and more sophisticated as the seasons have grown. We've got more streamlined front ends now covering over large sections of the tyres and wheels. We've got the rear aerofoils now being more hidden than they were before, but also more effective. And the whole aerodynamic plan of the car has changed over the last few years.
Some of that development obviously paid off, because on the first day of trial heats, Stewart set a lap record that nobody could touch for the next 3 days.
Down a bit more, find the potlock.
The royal blue Tyrrell Ford leads off from the pole position. The flag went down. It was a handful of firsts for winner Mario Andretti. The first event of the season, his first race for the Ferrari team, and his first World Championship Formula One victory. Ferraris came in first and third with Stewart sandwiched between them. But the odds can change in championship racing practically overnight. In the next event, the Spanish Grand Prix, Andretti dropped out with his engine on fire. and Stewart romped home ahead of another Ferrari driven by veteran Jackie Ickx. Monaco, site of the third championship event, sparkles under bright May sunshine as the racing teams arrive. But unfortunately for some of the drivers, the practice heats were run mostly in driving rain. Between the foul weather and the mechanical problems, Andretti failed even to qualify.
Rain is a dreadful problem for two reasons. First of all is the visibility. One can't see too well because if you're following another car, the spray coming off of the very wide tires really makes a big problem. And of course the very wide tires on their own have a problem because, for instance, I've done an enormous amount of testing on trying to eliminate the aquaplane problem where a tire goes over the water rather than going through it. And if a very wide tire goes over the water, you lose total control because it's like really being on top of a river. Now we've got specially grooved tires now with more adhesive compound, and I think this has helped a great deal. But of course, driving in the rain still today is the most treacherous form of racing that we do.
Once again, Jackie starts from the pole position. In the qualifying heats, he had already matched the lap record set by Jochen Rindt during the 1970 race, and during the race itself, he broke the record several times over. As a matter of fact, Stewart never gave up the number one position during the race, and all this in a car he had smashed to bits 2 weeks before. Revelations of the race was the brilliant performance of young Ronnie Peterson in his March Ford. Early in the race, he was caught in a logjam behind Pedro Rodriguez, but eventually he managed to snake through and then overtake Joe Seifert and Jackie Ickx to move into second place, and that's where he stayed, pushing Stewart into some of those record-breaking laps. Throughout the race, Peterson showed the kind of form that by the end of the season would put him second to Stewart in the championship ratings, even though he never won a race. The race took a heavy toll of cars before it was over. Five-time Monaco winner Graham Hill wrecked his Brabham on the second lap, and one by one other old pros like Seifert and Chris Amon dropped out, along with 5 other drivers.
I think the most satisfying was Monte Carlo because I wanted terribly to win Monte Carlo.
Jackie won the race, but his ordeal wasn't over. He was miserably carsick from inadequate cockpit ventilation. Being a champion isn't only a matter of courage and skill, it's also a matter of enduring sheer physical discomfort. A big hug from his wife Helen was some help, but he was still fighting his stomach while Prince Rainier and Princess Grace were congratulating him. The next championship event was the Dutch GP, where Jackie Ickx splashed home first ahead of Pedro Rodriguez under track conditions that would have been more appropriate for a motorboat than for a racing car. Stewart was way down in 11th place. So going into the French Grand Prix, Ickx was within 5 points of Stewart in the championship standings, and the pressure was on. Pressure is something every champion has to deal with, and here is Jackie Stewart's own recipe for handling it.
I'm starting a race. I best describe it as being like a rubber ball. It's mentally deflating that ball to the point where I'm personally in control of it without any difficulty at all. Till finally, when I get into a racing car, the rubber ball has totally deflated and it's just a heap of rubber in the bottom of the cockpit.
Joe Seifert talked to us about the mad scramble that takes place at the first turn of a Grand Prix race.
First corner, everybody comes the same days. Sometimes the car's not handling well, the tire is cold, and the brakes, not everything is perfect. Sometimes looks